G'day, mate. Welcome to Friday Facts 344, Tile Transition Collisions, and Team Steel Axe with a new speedrun record. And I have Team Mojo with me. Hey, you mate.
Hi, Team JD. How's Team JD doing?
It's the weekend. Obviously, it's a Saturday, since we're doing the Friday Facts, because we live in the future and we can't help that the Friday Facts gets published really late sometimes.
Usually on a Saturday.
Yeah, almost always religiously on a Saturday. I think we've done, 3 or 4 on a Friday?
About that, yeah. Well, it's actually still Friday night.
Yeah, if we're really lucky, it comes out at 10 p.m. But I think because of the daylight savings swap, it would still
That's
be
not happening anymore.
midnight anymore for us. So yeah, but this one is it's. So the last couple of Friday Facts have sort of felt like fillers, and this feels like a sort of another filler.
Oh yeah.
Because, yeah, we've got tile transitions, which we did cover back at Friday Facts 199 and 214, so a long time ago. And they focused on the visuals of how the tile transitions happened, because we have this lovely picture out here, and what on the right is actually what's in-game, and what's on the left is...
Also in-game when you disable tile transitions.
Yeah, the right's what happens if you go into the Alt or the F4 menu and turn off or turn on the debug option off the debug.
Turn on disable tile transition, because the thing turning the setting on turns them off.
Yes.
I was going to say also that the tile transitions has a very long and colourful history. We've been through many iterations of tile transitions.
Like 5 that I can remember.
At least, that's true. There were 5 major ones. Like there was one in version 12, I think. There was several in version 13 on the old concrete, and then it was changed again. And then we got. It's actually, it's funny because the one we got now is basically full circle. The hard edge.
What we have, trying to think. So we had one for bricks, and then they added concrete from memory. Another one when they added hazard concrete, because that was a separate edition. Then they added another one, or another type of transitions when they added refined concrete. So yeah, there's been a few. And then they've also iterated how the transitions work multiple times. Yes! So there is an option you can turn on to disable the GUI, because it really is just a GUI of the transitions. When you run around on the different pavement, it acts like the picture on the right, but you see the picture on the left.
It's basically the hitbox, the tile hitbox.
Yeah.
So it says what's passable and what isn't.
Yeah.
So you can very obviously see the rules of what is transversable on tile. Yes.
So we have tile transitions. They've been covered multiple times in recent history, but they took care of the looks of the tile transitions, but they didn't really take care of how the transitions actually work in the game when the game engine's dealing with it. So they also had to deal with the feel of the tiles. The feel of the tiles is example is the 1x1 landfill stepping stones, which again, one of the transition changes used to be if you put down a 1x1 landfill with a 1 tile gap of water, and we've got the second picture here to show that 1 tile of gap water. If you put down the 1 tile of landfill, you'd magically get a bridge, so you get 2 landfill for the price of 1. Which used to be a thing that we all exploited, because landfill still is really expensive, but it was one of those things that you would do to just scrape out that little bit of extra land early game when you couldn't afford to just go make an outpost and just say, all those miners just go into 3 assemblers that make nothing but landfill, fill up a train, and then deliver me the whole train. Which is what happens now when you get up to Mega Base, and you just go, yeah, we're just going to load everything into couple of assemblers into a train, and then I'm going to call the train. I'm going to have 20,000 landfill delivered, which I'm going to place down and promptly find out that I spent all of it and only filled in half a lake, because that's pretty much how it goes in Factorio.
Pretty much, yeah.
So when you do a 1x1 tile of land, you can actually walk, and they say you can drive across it. I've never managed to get a vehicle to drive across this crap. Have you?
Yeah, I haven't seen that happen either.
I guess technically it's possible, and I guess if you put a car down dead straight, lined up, and never
That's really what it comes
pressed,
down to. It's just getting it straight.
yeah, didn't press the A and DW to turn the steering wheel at all, maybe you could drive across it. But yeah, I've never seen it happen. So yeah, there's special conditions when putting in a 1x1 landfill, and so because they had to add additional collision checks for that 1x1, 1x1 collision checks and transitions, and it led to a problem because some of the cheesier among us, which I'm pretty sure you've probably done, Mojo, or I've definitely have, know that biters can't get across a one-tile gap. So,
Yeah, you can use a one-tile gap to advantage.
yeah, very much so. And I do it all the time. You know, go out and there's a few biters on the other side of the lake. You landfill right up to the edge and then fill it full of lasers. But yeah, the biters can't get across because they never enabled the biters to use this collision check logic. One of the reasons is more collision checks equals more UPS usage for the biter pathfinder, which is never a good thing. I don't know why you're linking that Friday Facts, but okay. And they didn't think it was necessary. However, it was available in the engine, and any mod could enable it if they want. This is exactly what Clonan did with his mining drones mod. Initially, it seemed to work, and I thought it might make them walk around lakes a little bit more naturally, like the player character does. If you haven't seen the mining drones mod, I'm actually using it in my current playthrough. It basically it puts out 100 or 300 or however many mini little engineers out into the mines, and they hand mine all the ore for you. But he is right, anywhere near a water mass, they walk really weird and they
spaz out pretty good.
Yup. But yeah, he quickly noticed that people were reporting on the forums the game was crashing with the mod installed. He quickly reverted the change to my mod and started looking into it. It turns out when they added the abstract pathfinder, which they added, if these were two in Friday Facts, 190 and 214, they added the abstract pathfinder. Recent. Probably in like 250, 270?
Somewhere around there. There was the one with the diagram showing how the biters are pathing.
Yeah. It was the upgrade to the biter pathfinder, which made them way less UPS intensive, and in theory, they'd pathfind better around certain objects. But yeah, when they added that pathfinder, they did not consider using the tile transition collision logic. So they upgraded one thing, but then forgot to make it basically backward compatible with something that potentially could be turned on, but wasn't being actively used. They also had the same crash happening sometimes without any mods installed, which I would assume would be a different bug, but maybe not.
That's interesting.
Yeah, they say the case was more difficult to reproduce, so this is a nice situation where mods can help us work out the issues in the base game. So he's also been working on another heavy unit mod, so basically a heavy pathfinding mod, transport drones. So this is, for those that don't like trains, you can put in little cars that will basically do what a train does. Load up from one area, drive to another area, unload.
Like the trucks in Satisfactory, really.
Yeah, the trucks in Satisfactory, or literally like trains without having to worry about train tracks and signals. Literally lots of lorries driving around your base. But yeah, it heavily relies on the tile collision logic. The units don't even collide with other entities. I wonder if that means they dodge trees or they just drive over trees. I really hope they drive over trees.
It's a tank graphic.
Yeah, it's a tank graphic, so I really hope it drives over trees.
Or just drives over everything. Leave a power pole in the way, clonk.
That's the car. If you leave a roboport in the way, that's the tank. Straight through it. But yeah, it turns out
that's where you need to see if players in the way is a problem too.
Players in the way is a problem. It turned out to be a really nice test of the new Pathfinder, but also highlights some of the issues that not considering the tile transition could bring. So we have this lovely tank that's going in a dead straight, not weavy wobbly, all the way along these diagonal paths. And with the upgrade to the Pathfinder, which is going to be released or has been released, I'm not sure, I haven't looked at version 2021, whatever version we're up to's.
We're currently on
changelogs.
2021.
Yeah, because there was a problem with 20.
Yeah,
That
2021 was like literally 2 lines.
Yeah, it was a hotfix. So yeah, this week Oxford finished the work on the upgrade to the Pathfinder, so we can enable the tile transition logic with the units. This change is immediately noticeable with the above example. So we can see that the tank now being told to stay inside the path does a lot better job. I do like the way it power slides around the top corner.
Oh yeah, definitely overshoots a little bit.
Yeah, I'm a little bit disappointed that it crashes into an invisible wall in the bottom corner.
Yeah, I think that's because it overshoots again, and instead of smoothly correcting, it makes a very hard correct.
Yeah, but it like crashes and stops.
Yeah, because it's hit the tile transition that says I can go no further, so it has to stop and then change direction.
Yeah, it needs to power slide more. Definitely needs to power slide more.
Yeah.
But
Because we need more power sliding tanks.
yeah, definitely. With a new logic in place, we're debating whether to enable it for biters or bot. We probably biters or not. We probably won't. It's only a minor change which would have a non-zero performance impact. Rough test puts the worst case at about 5%. But then again, it's fun way to surprise those who thought the one tile of water would stop the biters attacking. It kind of makes sense that they can walk over it just as a player can. Personal opinion, don't enable it. Like biter pathfinding for your average base that has...
It's not going to do anything.
Well, for your average base, it's not going to do anything because most people are not going to fill water up and leave a one-tile gap, okay? And realistically, if they're going to put a one-tile gap, they're just going to put a two-tile gap. Let's be honest. We're just going to put two-tile gap. That'll become the new norm.
Your one tile is just going to be a 2-tile gap, isn't it?
Yeah, and if you really want to make that bridge so you can walk across, you're going to have a 2-tile gap between your side of the river and the biter side of the river, and then you're going to put a 1-tile joining bridge, which you're going to fill with gates. And then you're going to walk across. And biters are still going to have a really hard time pathfinding across a 1-tile gap, where they have to narrow down to just 1 tile thick and then come in and run into your giant wall of lasers. It's just going to cost performance for no net gain.
Yeah,
so that's my opinion.
Well, arguably, instead of doing the whole, 1-tile gap, you could just get the artillery out and bombardment.
Yeah.
Play bombardment with biters.
Yeah,
bombardment.
That's another really good way of dealing with the biters. Look, it's just one of those things. It just, please don't enable it. Please don't give biters 5% more of my UPS. I have enough problems with the biters just wasting UPS. You normally find on any large base, even with the biters turned down, you get to a point where if you turn off the biters, you get 50 to 100% more performance back. All right, just because they're stuck or they're wandering around in circles, and I know there've been major improvements over the years to biters and their wasting of UPS, but they still, yeah, they're still a major contributor to the lack of UPS when mega basing.
Oh yeah.
This is why generally most mega bases end up turning off biters and turning off pollution. It's just a given, all right? They just become a waste of UPS eventually. So yeah, please do not turn on this option by default. You've already said mods can access it if they want to. Obviously, Clonan's mods, being unit-heavy mods, they're going to have to turn it on to make the mod work as best as it possibly can. That I'm perfectly fine for. You've accepted those terms and conditions that needs to be on to make the mod work perfectly. That's fine. That's your choice. But please don't turn it on in vanilla. So yeah, a bonus fact, this is the Friday Facts after all. He spent a bit of time benchmarking some late game transport drone based factories, which he has this lovely screenshot of somebody who obviously hated trains. And they wanted to make
they liked town grids.
Yeah, they really wanted to make like that town grid city block sort of build, and then hated trains. So they've gone with these truck things everywhere, and
all those green dots are vehicles, aren't they?
I think so. I would assume so. I actually haven't played with the mod.
I haven't really done anything with it either.
I think by the time the mod came out, I already had trains in my current base, and I just didn't see the point. And I think from what limited details I saw when the mod was first released, if you built the roads that they pathed on, you couldn't have two roads intersecting with one another. But maybe that was like the very first iteration, and then since then it's been upgraded, obviously, to make this base work. But yeah, I think that was a limitation early on. I'm like, no, it's just no point for me, because that's going to be the very first thing I need to do. I need to have two things pass over one another. So it's definitely something I'd like to play with in another playthrough, because I'm starting a community map in a week, and I will probably be installing the transport
Do all three
drones.
of them.
I will be. I already love the construction drones. They're awesome.
Oh yeah, construction drones is so much better now too. It's really good.
When they first came out, they worked and they were okay, but they were still a little bit clunky, and they worked on their own logistics network. Now that they're just player-based, they are way better. And again, the pathfinding upgrade that we had semi-recently in the last 50 Friday Facts or so, 150 Friday Facts or so, that made a big difference to how they work. So they work so much better, and they're actually...
And they don't get stuck navigating buildings anymore. Where when I played with construction drones, they used to get stuck in builds pretty regularly.
They get stuck less often. They still get stuck, right?
I'll be talking like one every 20 minutes or so. You have to constantly replace them.
Prior to, you'd open up your map view, and they're little light blue dots, and you'd find them scattered through,
Yep.
This
and
build
you're
and that
vibrating
build.
back and forth, trying to navigate a stone furnace or something.
Yeah. So yeah, the construction drones. Look, I love the mod. The mining drones, again, the little mini me's. I love the mod. I'm using in my current playthrough, and they're just... I don't know if they're more UPS efficient than mining drills. In fact, I think they're probably not. But just the simple fact that I can put down one thing and then hook up belts to one item and just say, throw 140 miners in there, go nuts. And with mining productivity, I think my record is currently 9 purple belts out of one of the drone platforms, which a purple belt in Factorio Extended, which is what I'm playing, is 75 items per second.
75 a second, which is a lot.
And I'm pulling out 9 belts. And it still has room to go faster. So trying to do that with traditional miners would be a nightmare. I'd end up with a maximum throughput of basically what the miners could mine. Either what the miners could mine per second, or what a belt could move per second. I'd end up like after 5 miners in, the belt would be full, and the rest of the miners on the line would be doing nothing. And out of an average sized patch, I might only get 4 or 5 belts out of it. I'm getting 9 out of per drone platform, and I might have 3 or 4 platforms per patch, because the little mini me's can quite happily mine over the top of one another. So it means I'm going through patches fairly quickly, but that's perfectly fine. I don't mind going through patches quickly, as long as I get the throughput I need for when I need it. So yeah, and the transport drones, like I said, I haven't played with it, but yeah, definitely next month, I think we're going to install all 3. And actually, there's a couple of companion mods that have recently been made today that I'll probably be installing. That includes...
That's interesting.
Armor for the construction drones, so when you're out and you happen to be building something, they walk through that one piece of acid and they die instantly. Hopefully they no longer do that. Same goes for the mini-me's, because now they do combat. If biters show up
it's like
in
that
your
old mod.
Yeah, if biters show up in your ore area and get close enough to the mini-me's, they will go over and swamp attack them with pickaxes. So yeah, there's been a couple of companion mods that have recently been made today that I haven't looked at yet, which changed the way those 2 mods work, and hopefully give both the construction drones and the mining drones a little bit more armor, a little bit more defense when dealing with the biter friends. But anyway, back to the Friday Facts. So the last part of the Friday Facts is the game is too short and I want my money back by Bilka. So this Wednesday, Team Steelite set a new any percent multiplayer speedrun world record of 1 hour, 15 minutes, and 21 seconds. Now, this is
pretty damn quick.
It's super, super fast. Now, I think it was just within the last month, somebody set a new record of sub 2 hours for a solo play. So it's sub 2 hours, one person got
I
a
think it was a
rocket
bit
launch.
over, unless there's been another one.
1 hour 55 minutes 21 seconds by Nephrons.
Okay, it's
And then
sub 2 hour.
Happy Dude had one prior to that of 1 hour 59 minutes. Actually, Rain has one of 2 hours 13 minutes. Anyway, sidetracked already. So they got a world record speed run of 1 hour 15 minutes, which is amazingly fast. Don't get me wrong, that is super fast. But we'll go into some of the details. So, Bilker is part of Team Steelax, so he'll take an opportunity to explain how they managed to beat the time. And it basically comes down to a lot of planning. So, the any speedrun category allows you to pick all the map settings, so you can actually go into start a new game and change any of the settings any way you want. So, maximum richness for the patches. Big size, so you don't have to leave the starting zone. What else would you change for the the resources mojo?
Give yourself all the resources, turn off biters, pollution, anything really. Turn off cliffs.
Turn
Just
off
basic.
cliffs. Yeah.
Turn off water. Anything, pretty much everything to give yourself any advantage.
Yeah. It's really about it's not a random seed. This is a seed that is geared to giving me as much of an advantage as possible. Yes. So yeah, planning begins with picking a map seed, which they did, since there are many maps to choose one from. They let a script generate maps and automatically filter out the ones with not enough ore in the starting area, which I call a little bit cheaty. I had no idea that we'd started automating Factorio that much. And
yeah, they've been doing that for years.
Oh wow. Okay. I remember the anti-elite speedruns, which would be like 4 hours of clicking the reroll button.
Yeah, that's why they made it. So anti-elites would actually get a speedrun done in a night.
Yeah. So yeah, they'd have an automated script go through and pick everything, and then they'd handpick whatever was left over, and then they set a target game to finish the game at. So they've obviously targeted an hour and 15 minutes roughly, because the quicker you get to the end game, the more assemblers you need for every part of the game. So you need to have more things doing red science faster to get red science built up quicker. You need to make sure that, like, as soon as you unlock the technology for red circuits, the assemblers are probably already built
and just waiting to have the
recipe set.
Crafter sign.
Yeah, the recipe set. I'll probably even have the belts pre-stocked with materials so they turn on instantly.
Yeah.
Same goes for blue circuits. Like, you got to pre-scale out all these things and have them turn on basically on cue, on time, every single time. So yeah, they get a base together, they get a timeline together, they get their numbers worked out. Then they actually get together on a map and they actually build a factory to attempt the actual speedrun. So you pre-plan everything out, you work out your spaghetti, everything else, get it built so you're happy with it, fine-tune it, which I've done multiple times for, not so much for speedruns, but for biter battles. We'd spend like 20 or 30 hours on just one blueprint that we're not allowed to blueprint because, again, the speedrun rules and same with the biter battles rules are no blueprints.
No blueprints, but there's nothing that says you can't have a picture of the blueprint on the other screen next to you.
Yeah, picture the other blueprint, or they actually say in the Friday Facts, we have a planning save file open in another window. So
there you go.
I don't know if that's actually just like a really high quality screenshot that they've taken that you can drag around, or they just have another copy of Factorio open in another screen.
It could just be another copy of Factorio open.
Yeah,
you just have it in map view and just hover over what you want to see.
That's what I'd be doing, because that's just so much easier.
It's more interactive than a picture. There's no ambiguity.
Yeah. So, just you spend so much time planning for these things before you actually even do anything. So another big part of planning was they created a spreadsheet of everybody's tasks and when they should be done. We distribute the tasks so that 2 players are on smelting, 2 players are doing just the miners, 1 player builds the power plant, and only 3 people build the factory itself. The strict divide means you only ever take the items you only ever take the items you need to craft whatever you're in charge of.
So that's a big deal with group speedruns is people hogging all the items, taking too much.
It's not only that, it's the everybody crafts like 1 burner mine drill. It needs, I think it's 6 iron, 5 iron, I don't know, however much it happens to be. But you end up picking up 8 or 9 or 10, and you have 4 that sits in your inventory forever, which had you not picked up that 4 and given it to somebody else, maybe it was an extra burner miner jewel that you could have had off the ground earlier. And over 8 players, that could be 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 extra burner miner jewels, which just scales up from there.
It scales dramatically.
Yeah, it's you see the speedrunners early game, and look, I don't like watching speedruns, honestly. There's lots of different players that do it. I'm trying to think of in my weekly Twitch viewing. Clowntown used to do speedruns, still does them occasionally.
Yeah, he does them occasionally.
I watch Was Nations, who has just really started speedrunning and came in with like a record of like 5 hours or something, which on the total list of speed records, with people coming in at sub 2 hours, that's not even in the top 30, but like he's trying, and it was one of those things
Good to give it a go.
I don't really like watching speedruns, but the first 20 minutes, half hour, that part I enjoy because it's so high paced. There's only, every single second counts, and it counts by an awful lot. So yeah, I like early speedrun, I guess. It's sort of like early biter battles. That first 10 to 20 minutes of biter battles is intense. From there on, it's still intense, but it's less intense.
Oh, in the case of biter battles, it's pretty much decided in the first 10 to 20 minutes anyway, like who's going to win, for the most part.
The first 10 or 20 minutes has a good indication, but with biter battles, it really comes down to how well the two teams also deal with combat.
That too, and how well prepared they are to deal with problems. Like a team could stampede out in front, but if they're not equipped to deal with a minor problem, then they could lose that lead.
Oh, we've seen it often where in biter battles, like there have been some really good teams that get off to a really fast start. Steel Axe would be really high on my list, but then they fall backwards because they don't deal with combat as well as the other teams do. And some of the teams just excel at combat. They're not so great, not so fast out of the gate, but when it comes to the combat, they absolutely leave Steel Axe for dead. So,
I actually remember one Steel Axe run where they were just getting, they got oil going. They they were just getting flame turrets, and they had a defense stamp up. They already had bullets to build it, and it was already being built. In the process of being built, and they just got hit with a particularly big throw of pots, and it overwhelmed the defense because it just was like a minute later, and they would have been able to weather it.
Yeah, I remember a match recently from this tournament where they were in the process of getting flamers up and running. I think they had 1 or 2 down, and they just got swamped. They just got swamped at exactly the wrong time, and
a minute either side, and it would have been completely different. A minute later, 2 minutes later, because they would have had just that little bit.
I think the other team got swamped by a similar size throw a couple of minutes earlier. It must have been a couple of minutes earlier, and they weathered it perfectly fine because they were more used to dealing with combat, whereas Team Steel Axe had just rushed out for, let's not defend anything. Our defense is our player, a couple of grenades, we're good to go, which works well until a player dies, at which point you have no defense, whereas the other team have been a little bit slower, but they've put a little bit more time and effort in defense. It's all, yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's all here and there, because that kind of strategy, you're betting on getting a decent fast start, and if it pays off big time. Because when you have a lead, when one player, I say it all decided in the first 10 or 20 minutes because once you get that lead, it's very, very difficult to catch up, if not even surpass that lead.
I think biter battles, it's definitely easier because you have the two things. You have the speed of the game, plus you have the biters to contend with. When it comes to pure speedrunning Factorio, no. When
it comes to speedrunning, the first, as soon as you miss playing, that's it. You got to restart.
I think Anti and Nephrons have both been doing a certain amount of let's do a speed run against one another. They each either they play on the same seed or they pick the seed for each other, which is way more interesting because they're obviously both picking the absolute worst seed for the other player. And yeah, you've seen that normally whoever takes the lead in the first 10 minutes holds that lead and just furthers it from there. But yeah, look, speedrunning is interesting. I know a lot of people love it, but yeah, it's my thing's the first 30 minutes. Apart from that, I'm done. But yeah, so back to Team Steel Axe. So when they've completed the plan, they then do a run and then they iterate on it. So they take into account what worked well and what didn't. They also split up the tasks very, 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 I don't know, very, very well defined. Which
well defined. Well, what it really saying is that like it all comes down to the planning and the management of the execution. As that's what I'm taking.
yeah, but also leads to some very boring like runs. Like again, Biter battles, I've done them, and I've been stuck on mining, and literally, I don't do anything but look at an iron or a copper or some sort of ore patch and miners for a 45-minute match. I don't do anything else because that's the point of that's the part of the base that I got designated with. It's what I'm stuck with. And you have the same thing here. We have Zelrun doing mining, Bilka doing smelting, and Annie is doing a base building. So Anti's bouncing all over the place, whereas the other players like Zelrun is just looking at miners.
They're hyper focused
For an hour of the hour 15. It is. It just leads to some pretty boring videos and some pretty boring Twitch streams. Same with Bilka doing smelters.
The term you're looking for is clinical. If that makes sense.
Boring. But yeah, clinical would work too. Yep.
It's to quote some. I can't remember what the exact context was. They're talking about what racing has become. It's clinical, autosports.
Yeah,
this
very
was from
much.
a guy who does instrumentation and data logging and all that sort of thing for a team at the time.
Yeah, I'm not a big watcher of motorsports, but I watch even less than I did 10 years ago because in a lot of them they're racing the exact same cars. I found that about I think it's one of the cars that we rode, V8 supercars?
Yeah, the V8 supercars, they're all basically identical. I think they can change...
They can change the outside body skin, just the skin, not the frame, to make it look like the car they happen to sell. That's about it.
It can't even change the aerodynamics too. That's how little they can change.
No, the aerodynamic profile has to stay the same. Which is just ridiculous, and yeah, it's why I watch even less. It's the same as Formula 1 cars over the last...
Oh yeah, that's Formula 1. Formula 1, if you're really into... Because I've known some people in F1, like if you're really into the engineering, it's a big... But if you look at it from the general purpose, stepping in, it's clinical as well.
Look, Formula 1, the cars used to be fast 10 years ago, and you'd look at the speed increases the 10 years prior, and you'd expect them to be going a lot faster now. They go slower. They go slower because they've had handicap after safety measure after. Like, no, you can't do that because we think, some other team has complained that gives your team too much of an advantage, and this sort of crap going back, left, right, and forward. That Formula 1 has got
They've sort of reached the power to weight limit that's really possible without dumping absolutely absurd amounts of fuel to get the cars even faster, and without basically like the torque tearing the car apart to get it faster.
Yeah, but they've also got rules when it comes to Formula 1. Like an engine has to run 3 matches, right? Going back a couple of years, it's like, no, we put in an engine, it runs 1 match, one race. After that 1 race, that engine's done. We throw it out, we rebuild a new one.
I was never a fan of that kind of thing. The idea of disposable engines. Look, there's a lot of electric racing where they do that too.
I agree from an environmental standpoint, it's not the best thing, but at the end of the day,
what do they call it? That's the Lotus thing. The car is built to pass the finish line. I remember it was a Lotus thing.
Yeah, it's designed to get over the finish line. That's it once it's done. And I think when it comes to Formula 1, which is all about the premium and that speed and everything, that's what it should do. It should just get there. And we're not sidetracked at all. So, Friday Facts. They
definitely not F1.
They do a lot of iterations. They improve, and there is some improvisation and so on and so forth. But yeah, speedrun is a result of a lot of planning, a lot of iteration, and some improv to compensate for mistakes in the execution. They they say they're all good friends, and other people jump in when mistakes happen, because mistakes are always going to happen.
Yeah,
And then
it's how you plan to deal with it. Again, project management. This is
it's
actually the thing that really interests me about speedrun. I've never been a big speedrunning person, but it's the whole planning thing that really interests me the most.
see, I'm the opposite. I'm like, I've done a speed run before, but I did it with zero planning. And I'm like, if you want to be good at a game and really be good at a game, you need to jump into the deep end, no planning, not even knowing the map seed, just hit go and just run that seed and see what time you get. And I think that's when you can really say that, like, I'm good at the game, because I went in blind, and I just, whatever obstacles I encounter, I just dealt with along the way.
That's true. There's certainly a good element of there. It's being able to adapt to the situation
Yep.
on a whim. That's actually a very, very good skill to have.
So yeah, in the future they hope to launch a rocket in less than an hour. But I'm sort of worried by this, because technically Steam has a refund policy, which is all caused by Australian law, that if you buy a game and you want to refund it within 2 hours of 2 hours worth of gameplay, you technically could. So I'm wondering when 1.0 comes out, if they've got a sub 1 hour speed run, how many people try to buy the game and finish in less than an hour, or at least less than 2 hours, then do a refund.
The thing is that only a few people are going to be able to do that.
Look, honestly, with the way
Like
Factorio is, there is no way you could watch enough videos to have enough skill to buy the game and get it finished within 2 hours and return it. But then again,
unless you already owned a copy.
Yes, but then again, Woob does give you a 30-day refund policy.
Yeah, they have their own refund on top of it.
So 30 days is probably possible. Because there are people that all they do is speedruns. That's all they care about. They just buy a game, they get good at it, they speedrun it, they get somewhere in the top 10, and they never play the game again. And again, I don't get it. I think
that's the thing. I don't like. When it comes to speedrunning, the thing I've never been able to understand is people who just play like the original Mario, Super Mario, all that, just endlessly, day after day, just practicing it. Like those games have been optimized to the point where, like, you got to get. I think you got to trigger RNG on certain render frames. Like, that's how far down the rabbit hole it goes.
You've got to be
now.
frame perfect on something. Some things you can get away with by pressing the right button at the exact right frame that you can transition through a wall or do this or do that, which just it's too far down a rabbit hole.
And then the new record over that is something that's 1 frame or 2 frames faster than the previous.
Yeah,
I mentioned Mario because I think they actually sometime recently, I think they got the time down a little bit.
Oh God!
Someone managed to get somehow the RNG managed to align perfectly for.
So, Friday Facts, we're at 3:44, and like I said right at the start, 35 minutes ago, that these feel like sort of fillers. And interesting enough, over on Reddit, in Friday Facts 3:44, there is a single post by one of the mods, and I need to find it.
Should also point out that that's almost half of the speedrun gone.
Yeah, it is. You could have speedrun all of Factorio, half of Factorio.
You could have speedrun half of Factorio in this time. That's just sort of puts into perspective how fast that is.
Yeah. So with this is by Oxford, who did the improvements to the pathfinding logic. He actually says, with the way things are right now, stuff has become a bit disorganized for us, and I'm currently waiting on other people before I can get back to the priority stuff I'm supposed to be working on. So I figured I'd go through my backlog of AI-related things in the meantime, which was a reply to Marcus asking, this really obscure fiddling around with Pathfinder is really the highest priority stuff now. It doesn't seem like something like that would ever come up with an unmodded game, even with very specific mods. What happened in the new fluid system, which I'm pretty sure we've covered. The fluid system was thrown out the window, pretty much.
The way.
But yeah, it's again, everybody's working from home. It sounds like the Factorio team has maybe gone back into old habits where people have a priority to work on, and you get so far, you hit a brick wall because you need somebody else to finish something else. You message them, and because there's nobody standing over their shoulder to yell at them, they end up completing whatever side project they're working on because they hit a brick wall with what they were working on because they need to ask person's C to finish something else, and then we end up with a round robin effect where everybody starts doing
Yeah,
little side
although
projects.
I've heard that one a few times in a few different situations, and it's vague enough that it kind of sounds like that, but it could be something else as
It could
well.
be.
Like
It could be.
a project, like some of these other things he says he's waiting on, could be bogged down, because their tasks are particularly difficult, and so like just waiting for it to tick off.
It could be. It could be anything.
Be interpreted any number of ways. It's just so vague, unfortunately.
It does mean that 1.0 is fast approaching, and I'm honestly worried. And we were talking about this beforehand. I'm honestly worried that they're going to either miss their 1.0 release date and push it back, which are really. I'm caught in two minds. Like, I don't want them to push back 1.0. I like the fact that they set a date. But then again, if like the Blueprint Library, and assuming the Blueprint Library is still happening, because we haven't heard about it for like 100 Friday Facts now, assuming it's still happening, I don't want to see that like pushed back for 1.1. And we see a 1.1 1 month after 1.0 was meant to be released, which added like a major feature overhaul like the Blueprint Library. I don't want to see a version 1.1 just a short time after the full release with all sorts of things that didn't quite make it into that release date. But then again, I don't really want to see 1.0 push back a month either. Although, from memory, the date they've picked also conflicts with Cyberpunk 2077. So
yeah, it's not ideal.
Maybe pushing back a month is not a bad idea.
Well, it's only, 5 months away?
Where's Discord?
It was sort of mid to late September, wasn't it?
Something September.
Yeah, it's about 5 months.
4 months, 30 days, 16 hours, 38 minutes, 28 seconds.
5 months.
We have a bot. We have a bot for 1.0. Yeah, it is. It's like 5 months.
I mean, 30 days is basically.
Yeah, it's. I think it's the 24th or 25th of September. It's close. It's close. It's getting closer, and I'm really worried that they're gonna miss that deadline. And like I said, I don't know whether it's ideal to miss the deadline and push it back for a month, or do what lots of other game companies do, and you push it out 1.0. Here's 1.0, and then you get we won't get a 0-day patch because the game's already online, but you get a 1 or 2 or a month later patch of 1.1. Oh, look at all these features that we added that didn't quite make it into the original release date because the publisher was on our back and we had to hit a target date. So we hit our target date, but here's all the features that should have been in the game that are finally making it here now. Because, yeah.
Well, at least being Factorio, it'll be relatively stable.
Oh, it will be stable. Look, I guarantee you.
Unlike other games in that situation, that have certainly a few in recent memory that have done that.
Yeah. It'll be stable no matter what, whether it's 1.0, 1.1, whatever they decide they're going to do. I'm getting concerned because we're down to 5 months, and the big ones that I can still think of is definitely the Blueprint Library. That's massive.
Well, there's an even bigger one, I think, than the Blueprint Library. Even more important.
Is this your 4 red squares?
Yes, this is my 4 red crosses on the decon plan. I've been complaining about this since version 16.
Yeah. So if you go in a decon planner and then you go to, I can't remember the options name for the last tab.
It's for entity ghost, tile ghost, items on floor.
It's for anything that doesn't fit into anything else. So
anything else, yeah.
It's
like a special category.
It's removing the requests from requester chests. It's removing the requests from like modules into a machine. It's removing ghost entities.
Yeah, entity ghosts, tile ghosts, and items on ground.
Oh, okay. So what do I have? I had requesters, which I thought was the clearing the requested chests. No.
The fourth one is the module request.
Okay, so there are 2 types of requests: either the blue chests or the module requests, plus items on ground, plus any ghosts.
I don't know about the logistics request one.
Okay, whatever. There's 4 options, and they're all represented by little red crosses.
All 4 of them do completely different things, and all 4 of them are the same red cross. So you have to hover over each one to check the tooltip to see which is.
because honestly, you don't use them that often enough to remember which one's which. I think that's what it really comes down to. Like, they're obscure, they're not often used. I think the items on the ground should be really easy, although they are limited to, I think it's 60, is it 32 by 32 or 64 by 64 pixels?
For the icon.
Yeah.
I don't even remember now. It's
wanna
a lot more than it
say-
used to be. Since they changed it, it might even be 128 by
No,
128.
I don't think it's 128. I
No,
think
it's
it's
64 because
64.
they recently doubled it. I should
Yeah.
know this.
I think it's 64. So, like, 64, you could put, like, a couple of little green circuit-looking things, a couple of red circuits, a couple of bits of iron on the ground, and then picture done. Like, you know, some junk on the ground, because that's essentially what happened. 9 times out of 10, you took off your armor, which meant you took off your pants, and everything fell out of your pockets, all over the ground. You go in the decon planer, you set this filter, and then you go swipe ground. And everything that you accidentally fell on the ground whilst you pooped yourself that never ever happened gets magically picked up.
It's actually a really useful
feature.
feature, and I was going to say that I think the reason why these aren't used is because they don't have icons and they're kind of hidden.
They're kind of hidden and nobody knows that they're like that one. I think I accidentally pooped on the ground gets used a fair bit. The clear module requests, no, not really.
That one. It's not as useful. It's the items on ground and the ghosts one, particularly tile ghosts.
Yeah, delete ghosts definitely. Especially if you're ever on a multiplayer map where someone decides to concrete the world. They get really, really grumpy when you bring up a filter decon planner that they don't know exists and swipe the whole screen, and they're like, "Ah," because they just spent 30 minutes trying to blueprint down concrete everywhere. Yeah. But with that said, I think that we're done with the Friday Facts. We do have a link at the bottom for the Factorio speedrun categories. I do recommend that if you're interested in getting better at Factorio, speedrunning is probably not a bad idea.
You don't need to do it sub 2 hours.
No, I like the any percent. No, New Game Plus.
Yeah, New Game Plus. Remember, the goal is sub 8 hours. That's basically the entry point for us.
It
if
is.
you can do it in 8 hours, then you're in.
Technically, New Game Plus, which only has one record holder of 2 hours 6 minutes, the rules are set anything you want. You can have up to 8 players, it turns out. And you can have any blueprints you want, because that's what New Game Plus does, and you can change any of the map generation settings. So literally, you could make a blueprint of your existing base that happens to launch a rocket, open up a brand new game, set all the resources to max, paste down your whole base as a blueprint, and then just build it. And as long as it's less than 8 hours, technically you get a speed run, which is really interesting.
All you need to do, the speedrun's based around the achievement came after the speed, because the speedrun basically created the achievement.
Turns out there's a New Game Plus massive multiplayer version, which has no limit on players.
Oh, well, the number of players, there is a law of diminishing returns.
There's a very big law of diminishing returns, and basically anything over 8, it gets really, really bad. But
having said that,
technically, you know,
does it have to be human players?
Oh,
because each new player is a burner, mining drill, and a furnace.
I don't know. That's the conversation we might have off screen. But anyway, I think with that, we're going to call it here for the Friday Facts number 344. Thank you guys so much for watching. Do hope you've enjoyed, and we'll see you in next week's episode. All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.